Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Roush will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Roush. I'm your own personal sales maven, here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies for mastering your sales conversations. Today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about how to turn the negatives into positives in your sales conversations. So there's a couple examples of some things that often come up in sales conversations that are perceived as negative. And hopefully by the end of this episode, you might have some reframe around a few of these and maybe even some new language to use in your sales conversations that will benefit you significantly. Now, before we get into the actual content that I've prepared, I want to do a shout out for somebody who left me a very nice review. Thank you so much for this. I am just always so incredibly flattered that somebody takes the time to leave a review. This one says, "Love the real life examples, 5 stars. I could so relate to Amber when she said sometimes she simply chickens out. I ran into a store to grab a notebook so I could jot down the language and suggestions Nikki had for Amber. So many great real life examples to learn from." And it looks like this is from it says theleadr, and it's one word that left the podcast, or podcast review. So theleadr, theleadr. I actually like that. That's really cool. So I think that you're referencing the review is referenced to episode 45 called Selling the Complete Solutions with Amber Peterson, who is amazing. And I love that you ran into a store to grab a notebook to write down language. That makes me so very happy. So thank you so much. And thank you as a listener that you would take time to leave me a review. Okay, let's talk about some of these negatives, these situations that often come up in your sales conversations that may bring out some fear. There are 3 that I want to address. And the first one is when somebody is asking you to do something that maybe you don't offer. And sometimes you feel compelled, like, oh my gosh, if I say no to this person, that isn't a part of the offer, I am going to lose their business. And I want to give you a reframe around this because that's not always the case. Now, let's be real. This could happen. You might, if the answer is no to whatever their request is, you may lose their business, but sometimes people just ask for things. I think I've talked about this in some contexts, in some ways on the podcast in different episodes. And I just want you to really kind of stand in this place of authority and credibility about what it is that you do bring to the table, what it is that you are offering to the prospect, so that when they ask you for something that's a little bit outside scope, you're okay with saying that actually isn't a part of the offer, and here's what my clients get instead, or here's what you will get in your program, or here's what you will receive when we work together. This just actually happened to me today. I was on a call with a prospective client, and they were asking me for something that is something I just don't do. And it had to do with providing them with some additional ways to track the flow of our meetings. Now, that is going to be something that would take up more time. It's not something that I already have set up. And frankly, it's not worth it for me to go and set this up for one client. And it isn't something that clients have ever asked for before. So I need at least 2 more people to ask me for it, but before I would probably even consider putting it into the offer, and it would have to be asked in the way this person asked for me to go, maybe this is something. because I know that when I work with clients, they get huge value out of it. So when they're asking me to have some way to like track their progress, what I say instead is that isn't actually something that I offer. What I do offer to my clients in private coaching sessions is I allow for them to record the session and they get to keep the recordings. And as a matter of fact, many of my clients transcribe our meetings and then pull the language that I give during the meeting out and craft their messages from there. And this is true. This really does happen. I found years ago that with Zoom, you can set it up that the client can record it on their computer. So I used to actually record the session for them, and then I would have to wait for it to upload and put it into Dropbox and then send them the link. And sometimes I would forget because I'm already on to 18 other things. And by the time it was all uploaded into Dropbox, and now I found with Zoom that I can just allow for the client to record the session. They can record it to their computer. When we end the session, they get the recording and then they can do with it whatever they want to do with it. And it is true that many of my clients get those sessions transcribed. As a matter of fact, one of my private monthly coaching clients, she transcribes every single session that we have because we work a lot on language. She has a lot of questions of like, hey, this scenario just happened. What could I say here? Or how should I craft the message or the response to this or to that? And then she puts them into an email form. She takes my suggestions, my language. She puts it into an email form, or actually she puts it into a Google Doc. This is part of her coaching program. She then sends me the Google Doc. I edit it for her and send it back to her. And now she's got all of these, I don't even know how many messages, like email templates of things that we have worked on in her monthly coaching sessions. So this is what I do. I'm not afraid to say to somebody who's asking for something that's outside of my normal scope, that isn't something that I offer. And what I do offer to clients. So when you think about this for your own interactions with clients and they ask you for something, be ready to say, that isn't something that I provide. However, what you do get, or that isn't something I provide, I do actually allow for my clients to do X, Y, and Z, and then bring up some really awesome benefit of what clients get when they work with you, and explaining it in this way, because a lot of times clients might, or the prospect might not get there all the way on their own. So you have to kind of paint this picture for them. You have to give them a real life example. This is why I say, many of my clients will record the sessions and then get them transcribed so that they can pull the language out and reuse it over and over again. By giving that real life example, it allows for the person who's asking for something, it allows for their mind to kind of shift gears and start to pay attention to the thing that they are going to get, and then think about how they're going to use that. How awesome is that? And instead of just saying, no, I don't do that and leave it there, I talk about what I do. So I want you to think about that in your own business. How can you say to somebody, that actually is not a part of the package? What is a part of the package is this, and then highlight something that you do offer to the client. Okay. So that's the first one that I think is turning the negative into the positive. Now, here's another one, and I may have chatted about this in an earlier episode, but I want to bring it up here in case, one, if you haven't listened to the earlier episode where I talk about this. I think this is in the buying signals. I'm pretty sure I talked about this in the buying signals episode, which was way back a year ago. And if you haven't listened to that one, I would recommend it. But when somebody brings up a negative experience that they had with a previous provider or somebody who did a version of what you do, oftentimes that can kind of derail, I think, sometimes our confidence. And I am here to tell you that that is a buying signal. When somebody brings up a negative experience, I worked with a sales coach before, I didn't really get the value out of it, or I went through a coaching program and I just felt like everything was really surface. We never dived deep into anything. Like, that can sometimes derail us. And I want to tell you it shouldn't, because it's a potential buying signal. It's an opportunity for you to turn it into a positive. Now, I will say it's really important when somebody brings up a negative experience that they had with somebody or with a program they went through or whatever it is that you're talking about potentially selling to them. You never want to dive down in the pit with them. And what I mean by diving down in the pit with them and being like, oh yeah, you went through so-and-so's program. I've heard terrible things about that. Or, oh, I know so many clients who have tried and spent money on that and just got nothing out of it. That's diving down in the pit. When you dive down in the pit like that, it's super hard to get out, because who's going to be the person with the ladder to help you dig out of the pit? So don't be the person who dives into the pit. Instead, you can say, oh, I'm so sorry that was your experience. Here is what my clients experience when we work together, or here's what you can expect from the program that we're going to work on. This also came up recently in a client conversation or a prospective client conversation. The person that I was talking to had mentioned that last year went through a program with a coach and didn't really feel like there was a lot of value to the program. And so was wanting to hear what I have to say about the program that I was presenting to them, right? Now, here to add a little bit of extra like fuel to this fire, the person who was teaching the program was using some of my content and talking about it from their own perspective. Now, I'm not in any way calling anybody out and saying they didn't have permission. The person actually did have permission, and they were giving me credit. But here's the thing. This is why I don't really get too upset when people teach the stuff that they learned from me, like teach it in some way. I do appreciate credit for it. I think that's important. I'll probably do an episode about that at some point. But I don't really get that like freaked out of like, oh my gosh, they're teaching my content. And like, oh my, what's that going to happen? Because I know me teaching my own content will always be better than somebody else teaching it, because it's mine. I really do craft the stuff that I teach. I have used the things that I teach. I always say, like, I walk my talk. I have put these things into practice. I have years and years of sales experience in all different types of situations, scenarios, some of the craziest things that people could probably not even think of on their own, where I've been in these high pressure situations or these uncomfortable, sales conversations or whatever it is. Like, I've been there, I've done that. I know what happens and what to do. I know the pitfalls. I know the highs, the lows, all that stuff. So I can really stand in a place of credibility and say to somebody, this is what you can expect when you go through the program with me, and here is how I can serve you. I don't in any way talk about why this other person who taught you this surface level version of what they learned from me, why that wasn't the good thing for you to invest in, because I don't feel that way. And as a matter of fact, I think this person laid the groundwork for me, because it's going to make me a super shining star for them when this client now hires me and starts to experience the deeper knowledge, the stories behind the content that I teach, the ability to tweak it and adjust it and make it relevant to their business, because I've got the real world experience around it. And my guess is you do too, for the stuff that you offer to your clients. You're an expert. You have tons of experience. Now, you may not have tons of experience, like maybe you're newer in your business, but most people don't just start a business and be like, so I think I'm going to be a sales coach, having never sold anything before. Well, or been in a professional sales position. I will say, I don't actually think you should hire salespeople, like sales coaches, who haven't sold. Like just because you've managed salespeople doesn't mean you know how to sell in the high pressure sales conversations, or just because you read a book about sales doesn't mean that you should teach sales, right? So when you think about the experience that you show up with, you probably do have real world experience around the offer that you're making. I hope that you do, frankly, because it'll make you so much more confident and stronger in your approach and your delivery. What your clients will get as a result is so powerful. So when somebody brings up a negative experience about somebody they worked with that said they did what you do, stand in your place of credibility and authority and talk about what you'll deliver, what they'll receive when they work with you, the impact that it's going to make for their life, for their business, for whatever it is that you're offering. Really stand in your place of credibility. And all you need to say is, I'm sorry that was your experience. Here's what you can expect when we work together. And then lay it out for them from a place of confidence, from a place of credibility, from a place of authority. So that's the second one of how to turn a negative into a positive. Now, here's the third one. I was reminded of this from a former client who just reached out to me recently and brought up how she is still using something that we worked on together. Gosh, it's probably been 3 or 4 years ago now, and how it's made this, impact in her business. And what it was something that she was offering. It was a part of her offer, but it was painful for her to do. And she was trying to figure out how to get rid of doing it without losing business. So originally, I think the idea is she was saying, I'm going to start charging a premium in order to provide this service. And frankly, it is a premium service, and she could absolutely have done it that way. And what I had recommended is, instead of positioning it as it's a premium, something she really just didn't want to do, instead, what if you incentivize the client to do this piece of the work themselves? So what we did is we actually raised her price to include the premium offer. And then we offered a discount for the clients to do it themselves. Because ultimately what she really wanted was to not do it. Like, she feels like it's an important part of the process, but she didn't want to be the one to do it. Now, are there other ways that we could have gone about this? Yes. She could have hired somebody to do it. And that didn't actually really make sense in her particular business. For your business, maybe this, maybe another solution would be better for you. And what we found is, by offering this, it was a substantial discount. Now, to the client, they see it as a discount, but what we know to be true for her is we raised her price to include it, so that when the client picks the package and this premium is included, she is being compensated for doing something she didn't really want to do. And so she felt okay about doing it because there was this bigger compensation around it. And she also feels really good by giving the client a discount to do it themselves. So that's another way that you can turn a negative into a positive. I may have talked about this before. I know that I've written an article about this years ago, and I still see people do this in their business, which I think is a mistake. So this is kind of the same type of, it's kind of along the same lines of this example that I just gave for a client who didn't want to do something. So we incented her clients to do it themselves by offering a discount. A lot of times when you go someplace or buy something, people will penalize you for your payment method. This is such a mistake, I think, to penalize people for how they want to pay you money. And what I mean by this is, when you go into a place of business and they go, well, if you're going to use a credit card, you have to pay the credit card fees. And as a matter of fact, some of my coaching clients sometimes will say this is what they do in their business. And I always tell them, I think this is a mistake. We don't want to penalize anybody for paying us money. What we want to do is incentivize them to pay us the way we want them to pay us. So if you want a client to pay cash or to transfer, do a bank transfer instead of putting something on a credit card because you don't want to pay a credit card fee, then you bump the credit card fee into the price of whatever it is that you're selling. You bump up that price, and then you say, now, if you choose to do a bank transfer, there is an incentive for you. You'll save this amount of money. That is a different way to reframe versus making a client feeling like leaving somebody feeling penalized for paying you money in any way, I think is a huge mistake. And as a matter of fact, I know for me personally, it drives me so crazy when I go and get my nails done and they say, you have to pay a fee if you're going to use your credit card. And I get it. Like I get the credit card fees. I pay them in my business too. It's a huge amount of money at the end of the year of how much money that I pay to credit cards in credit card fees. But I don't ever want my clients to feel penalized for giving me money, right? For paying for the service. So if I want to incent them to pay in some other way, that's what I'm going to do instead of making them feel bad about whatever their form of payment is. So that's another little how to turn a negative into a positive is think about the way you frame things. Language and the way you position something to the client, it all matters. It counts so very much. And if you're willing to take a step back, and instead of looking at things of like, this is so frustrating to me, or I don't want to have to pay this fee, or, at the end of the year, I just paid thousands of dollars in credit card fees. Instead, like look at it like, thank goodness I paid thousands of dollars in credit card fees because look how much my business grew, right? But make sure that your clients don't feel like the penalty of it. Like let's reward the behaviors we want instead of punishing the behaviors we don't want in business. Now, as a parent, you might have a different take on this about how you interact with your kids. That's up to you. I'm not a parent, so I'm not saying one way or the other about, the carrot or the stick, whatever you think works. But in business, I think oftentimes the carrot is how you build rapport. The carrot, drawing people to something, making them feel really good about something, feel rewarded in some way, instead of making your clients feel punished, builds rapport. Punishing people or making them feel less than in some way diminishes rapport. And the foundation of everything that I teach and how to be successful in sales is about building rapport. You should always be making rapport deposits in your bank account with the person that you're in contact with instead of withdrawals. I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, that rapport to me is like having a bank account, and every person I come into contact with, I'm either making a deposit or I'm making a withdrawal. I want to make as many deposits as possible with clients because the more rapport you have, the easier it is for them to say yes to you, the easier it is for them to go out and shout your praises from the rooftops and on social media, the easier it is for them to come back and hire you again when they need you. There's just so many advantages to building rapport. So this is why I wanted to record this episode today, is to talk about turning those negatives into positives for you, making it really easy for clients to feel good about what they are getting and how they work with you. Okay, so one other little piece before we wrap this up today is, I didn't mention this, but I think this is important to talk about. When your answer, by the way, is no to something, or if somebody's asking you for something and you do say no to it, and then you talk about what you do, it's really important that when you give the no, you state it as if it is a fact. You don't in any way act hesitant or apologetic about their ask and your no to it. If you act hesitant or apologetic, people will jump on that and they will ride that home to the bank, but not in the good way. They'll use it to their advantage and to your disadvantage. So when somebody asks you for something, the answer is no, then you say it like it's just a fact. You're saying it like it's the time of day. You know, if you want to say it's noon or no, I don't offer that, it should be in the same tone of voice. And then you talk about what you do offer. Okay. So hopefully this is helpful. Now, we are talking about how 2021 is the year of the question. So I'm wrapping up every single episode with a question. And here's the question that I picked for you this week that you can put in your little toolkit, your sales toolkit of questions to potentially ask in your sales conversations. This one is, where are you in the decision-making process? And would you like to move forward with working together? Where are you in the decision-making process, and would you like to move forward with working together? Now, I picked this question specifically because I want to remind you that even when you say no to something that somebody asks, your job is still to invite them to work with you. Your job is still to invite them to take the next step in whatever that is with you. So when somebody asks for something and you say, no, that isn't a part of the system, that isn't a part of the package, here's what you do get. Then you follow up with, now where are you in the decision-making process? Would you like to move forward with working together? I just actually asked this question today in a prospective client call, and it was right after the person had asked me for something and the answer was no. I asked this question and they're like, we're ready. I'm ready. Here, let's go. Like, I was like, great. Next step is credit card. I can take that for you now. And gave me a credit card. And now this person is in and working with me. So don't be afraid to ask this question. All right. So as we wrap up today, I always like to issue an invitation for you to come join the Sales Maven Society. If you're not in there yet, what are you waiting for? I really want to know. I'd love for you to reach out and tell me, what are you waiting for? What's stopping you from joining? Because this really is the best place for you to start igniting your sales. If you're a listener of this podcast, you're finding value in what you're getting in these episodes, then come see what's possible for you in the Sales Maven Society. It is so much more. You might not think there's more. I got more. I got more for you. The Sales Maven Society is my monthly membership program. This is where you bring your questions, you bring your sales situations, your questions, your concerns, your struggles, and I provide the answers and the guidance to boost your confidence, the training that you need to hone those skills, get those language skills improved, get really comfortable and confident in your sales conversations. You can join the Sales Maven Society right now by going to salesmavensociety.com. This is, I mentioned, a monthly membership. It's $147 a month coaching program. It is worth its money. You should be earning your money back by using and applying these techniques in your sales conversation. So it will more than pay for itself. And for you to just come do a little taste, you can come your first month with this trial code for only $47. So you can take $100 off your first month. You can come test it out, see if it's the place for you. Here's the coupon code you're going to enter. You're going to go to salesmavensociety.com, enter the coupon code 47trial. That will take $100 off your first month of membership. Come check it out and see if this is the place for you. We'd love to have you with us. It is so fun. We actually get listeners joining every single month, and it is so fun for them to come in and see what's behind the curtain, what's in there for you. All right. Thank you so much for listening. If we haven't connected yet on social media, let's do that. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you're getting out of an episode, what your takeaway was. If you stopped your car and ran into the store to get a notebook so you can write something down, let me know. I want to hear that. So connect on social media. You can find me. I hang out on Instagram and I hang out on LinkedIn. And you can find me, Nikki Roush, Sales Maven, super easy to find. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.